All right, today we got one heck of a story. We got really the old school rags to riches story to talk about with my friend Isaiah Melanson here. This is a true someone coming from a lot of challenges back in his earlier life, and he shared a lot of those personal things with me over the years of me getting to know him. But really from some serious challenges to he recently closed a $200,000 net wholesale deal. Isaiah, let's start with what were you doing 12 months ago from right now today?
12 months ago from today, I was cutting grass. I was in my hometown of Slidell, Louisiana. I had already closed one wholesale deal at that time. I think I closed three by that time, and they were all spread out over like 6 months apart. So it was nothing consistent. Yeah, I was just cutting grass. I had my own lawn care business. So I had a truck, I had a 2008 Chevy Silverado, and it was beat up, and I was riding around with my push lawnmower, cutting grass in my old neighborhood, yard by yard, getting really, really dirty, sweaty, itchy, cutting ditches. And that's how I was making most of my money. I was living with my parents at the time. It was making me some money. Like I wasn't broke. I learned how to like be self-sufficient. Like I quit my 9 to 5 at that point, and I got my first wholesale deal, used that to get my first truck. And yeah, I was just cutting grass, hustling.
We were doing a lot of deals together at that time. At least we were working on deals, trying to get deals, and we did do some. And we did some all the way up until even this year. We did a couple in January and February earlier this year. They were small deals though, especially anything's a small deal compared to what you've done now. But so you were cutting grass, and I was like, you were in Slidell one day. I remember calling you. I was like, man, can you go look at this property? And you're like, man, my truck's broke, my lawnmower's broke. Like, I don't even know. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you could be, you've got such a talent, a natural talent. You're a great people person. You have so much empathy because you've been through so many things in your life. Do you want to share a little bit about, where you come from early on, even to get to the point where you could have your own lawn cutting business?
Yeah. So, so I was born. I'm gonna do a quick like backstory of my past. I was born in New Orleans, but I was pretty much raised my whole life in Slidell, Louisiana, and troubled home, troubled background, always a troubled kid. I got every school I ever went to, I always got kicked out of just because I had problems. I had problems at home, and it transferred, over into other areas of my life. So always went to alternative schools. I was going to jail when I was a juvenile. Yeah, ever since I could remember, I was always in and out of jail. Then it became like I started to have a drug addiction. I started smoking weed at like 13 years old, smoked my first cigarette at like 13, 14 years old, hanging out with the wrong crowds, and things just got worse and worse and worse and worse until I was about 24 years, well, I was 23 years old, right? And the drug addiction was at its max. I was blacking out every other night. Xanax, alcohol, crack, meth, you name it. and and I was doing it all, dude, and I was bad. And I was in a toxic relationship with my ex-girlfriend, and I ended up hitting rock bottom, went to jail, and then I turned 24 in jail. And then that's kind of when I had a revelation of like, dude, if I don't change something, I'm gonna be in here just like all these old heads in here. They were like 80, there was like an 80-year-old dude in jail. Like, how? That's when I decided to turn my life around. I made the decision. A flip was switched in my head, and I was just like, I gotta do something. And by the grace of God, and manifestation has been like really, really strong, like ever since I was in jail. I read this book called um it's a green book. I can't remember what it was called, but it taught me like how to manifest. And I did get out of jail by the grace of God, but I was doing visualization exercises of me, what it would be like to be outside of jail, and it just came to pass. And I did experience what I was visualizing. Anyways, but I think that's something that always stuck with me. No, it's called the Miracle Club. The Miracle Club. It's a green book with like an eye on it. I had to keep the promise to myself. I said, if I get out of jail, right, and I gave everything up to God, all that, and I was just like, just. But the point is, the defining moment is like in that moment when I turned 24 in jail, I said, I don't care if I have to spend the next 3 to 5 years in jail or in prison because I was supposed to get shipped to prison. I'm going to be the best version of myself that I could possibly be. So it fully accepted that I was going to go to prison, and like it might happen. If it does, if it doesn't, whatever happens, I'm just going to be the best version of myself from here on out. By the grace of God, I got out and I had to keep that promise to myself. And it's been just a journey ever since, overcoming all my vices, not smoking weed anymore, not smoking cigarettes, not smoking nicotine, not drinking like that. Just being.
How old were you when you got out?
I was 24, so I was
Okay.
22 when I went in, turned 24, and got out like a few months later.
Okay. And now how old are you?
I'm 27 now.
Okay. So that's a fairly short time when, especially when you're my age, that's blink of an eye. So then you started you started thinking about how can I do something more with my life? And you started reading a lot of books, and also you got deep into reading the Bible, becoming a more spiritual person. And I know this because you told me these things. And then you started to get into a hunger for becoming an entrepreneur. That led you to real estate. And then one day I had listed a property for sale, and I get a phone call. Someone said on the other line, "Hey, I'd like to try to buy that property you're selling." I could tell immediately that you were a wholesaler, right? Because I'm aware of wholesaling. And so I started to have a conversation with you. Well, what you gonna do with the property, blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of pulling your leg, but we kept talking and we went deeper and we became friends on that phone call. And I said, look, I'm not gonna sell this property. But I tell you what, if you have any other leads come your way that you don't know how to close or that you want to talk about, call me back. And you call me back maybe 3 or 4 days later on another property in Denham Springs, Louisiana. And we came up with a creative way to pitch the lady. I remember she was an 18-wheeler driver. And she was like in Colorado between the mountains when we couldn't get in touch with her because her cell phone kept going out. And we finally got in touch with her. We pitched her on a creative deal. She agreed to it. And then you ended up, was that your first wholesale deal
No,
or your second?
that was my second.
And you sold that to another person and that really cemented our relationship. But also from there, you realize, I think, that this was a real deal somewhere around that time. And you really started researching how to really dig deep into real estate. But then you kind of backslid and went into the whole, I'm going to go build a lawn business.
Yeah, there was a lot of parts skipped. I just wanted to say,
Yeah,
so
go ahead. Say.
really quick, when I got out, I started my life in 2021. And then I didn't know what else to do, but I just got a job. I just knew how to work. I knew how to hustle. And then, yeah, I ended up quitting my job. And the first entrepreneurial thing, really, I didn't know I wanted to do wholesale real estate. I just knew I didn't want to work for these idiots anymore at a freaking disrespectful job, working my butt off, making barely nothing. And so I just seen too many 18-year-old millionaires. I was like, no, if they could do it, I could do it. And so I first got into drop shipping. When I fell in love with wholesaling real estate, the second I got like my first contract signed is when I didn't even get it signed yet. I think it was like just like my third cold call. I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I want to do. That's when I dove deep into it. It took me 6.5 months to get my first wholesale deal. That was a emotional, spiritual journey on itself, whole level up. made $7,000. Then I got my truck. And I think somewhere along those lines, I met you. I knew you were cool, like just from the way you were talking, because I had another mentor before that, right? On the house that I called you on, and I tried to sell it to him. And I was like, look, it's not a deal. But then I brought you another that deal that you just talked about. But yeah, I knew you were cool just because the way you talked, we kind of talked the same. And I was like, this guy's cool. If he's gonna teach me, I want to learn from him. You spoke my language, because my other mentor, he would explain things in a way that just like made me fall asleep, and it's like, okay, what's the point? But when you talked to me, you were like, look, dude, this is what it is. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyways,
Now that conversation was only about 3 years ago, so that people understand how fast you can build something. So then we started trying to work together. We did start working together. We started doing a few wholesale deals together here and there. Early last summer,
yeah,
a year ago, you decided I'm gonna try to put up some cash by working out real hard all summer, doing my own lawn thing. But I kept trying to persuade you, like, man, I think you should just get out of here, leave all these friends and people behind. You just need to commit to being on the phone. You can do this. You got a real exceptional talent. And and finally, you called me one day, and I believe it was last either late September or early October.
it was August of when I found my place in Houston. And then I moved the last like 2 days of August.
Yes. Okay. So it was August. So not even a year from right now. And you called me and you said, all right, dude, I found my place. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna sell the wholesale business and leave. And we went through this whole thing where we talked about how much money are you gonna need? Are you gonna be able to pay your rent for 6 months so that you could commit and focus? Because everybody needs to understand that it does take a serious level of commitment and focus and action taking to actually get traction in this business. So then you left Louisiana, you left your friends and family, you left some relationships that weren't so great for you as well, but you left everything behind, which I think is so freaking important.
Hmm.
And you went to a new place and you essentially locked yourself in a room.
Yep.
And what was when you got to Houston? Tell us what your day looked like.
When I got to Houston, I was committed from day one. It was like go mode, no playing around day one. Because I never did it before. It was very, very like, it's kind of intense. It was scary. I'd never really moved out before either. Never took my life serious before. But when I moved out, I was like, this is it. I only had like $2,000 in my bank account. That went away quick. But I was just like, I got to figure it out, dude. So my day was like, I had my morning routine. I had all these life skills that I had built from my self-improvement journey from the past 3 years. And I knew how to implement them now, which by the way, the whole grass cutting thing, I really appreciate it because it was just a part of my journey, and everybody has their own things that they got to go through, and cutting the grass was definitely, I don't regret it at all. I did like cutting grass, like serving people and like doing that. But anyways, my whole day looked like my morning routine. So I would wake up at I first started waking up at around 3 to 4 a.m. and I did that for a long time. 3 to 4 a.m. I'd wake up, journal. This is before my journals were affirmations. It was just journaling. Like I was just journaling, like what's up, just being normal. So I would journal, and then I would read my book, whatever book I was reading at the time. And then I would read my Bible, and then I would pray, and then I would make my bed. And then when I first got out there, I would do my 100 push-ups, and that would be it. And then I'd get on my computer, and then I'd start doing any administrative tasks for like I don't know, an hour, 2 hours. And then I would watch a sales training video, take notes, just do the stuff that I didn't have to call people to do. And so I was working on myself and working on my business administrative task, and then I would just start calling as soon as like 8 o'clock, sometimes 7 o'clock or 7:30, and I'll just call, and then that was it. That was it.
Yeah, you had some so first of all, think about this. Everybody listen to this. That was 7 months ago from right now where we're sitting. September 9th would have been 7 months ago.
Yeah.
So that was right when you were in like your first week. You had some goals that you were trying to hit every day with those calls. And those goals and what you were your numbers you were tracking is what I'm getting at. Though that ended up building you a big enough funnel and giving you the confidence to be able to talk to anybody on the phone anytime, anywhere. Because let's take a 4 week period. In a 4 week period, do some quick rounding up math. How many people were you talking to? So that was a month. How many people do you think you talked to on the phone in the first month?
I had a dialer when I first came out there. That was the first thing I was doing. So I had the dialer. I was talking to maybe, I want to say 100. It was either 50 or 100
It
connected.
was 100 at first.
Okay, 100 connected calls,
Yeah.
like 500 dials or something like that.
And you were tracking all that on a whiteboard,
Well,
a notebook at first.
no, a notebook is when I was back at home. When I had the dialer, all my numbers are in the dialer in the
That's
system.
right. So you got the dialer, and that was, a big leap of faith on its own because you didn't have but $2,000. You had to start spending money on software,
Right.
and you started making these calls, and there came a point where probably around week 6, 7, 8, you got to where you were pretty consistently talking to 20 to 30 people a day. I remember that. And
Yeah.
and that's whenever I noticed your confidence change. And so I'm saying that because I want people who's listening to be able to understand that, like, you got to really take this seriously. You got to make the calls. You got to get on the phone. You got to have those awkward emotions. You've got to feel like you don't know everything. You've got to be told off by people. You got to get angry calls, and you've got to do enough of that to where none of that phases you anymore.
Right.
Is that right? Would you agree?
That's exactly right. I tell my students that now. I say you have to get punched in the face for the first 2 to 3 weeks. You're gonna get stomped out, kicked in the mouth, jumped, and like insulted for like the first 2 to 3 weeks. If you could handle that, then you'll start to get the hang of it. So yeah.
But this is the thing that most people won't do. Most people won't make this many phone calls and
Right.
learn this skill.
Right.
And this is really at the beginning of your business when you're just trying to get one or two wholesale deals a month. This is why people fail. It's because they're not doing the actual work. Because watching a podcast, listening to YouTube, watching a watching a YouTube, listening to podcasts, I said it backwards. Is not actually doing the work. That's the things that you do at 6 a.m., 5 a.m.,
Right.
not at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., you got to be on the phone. At 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., you've got to be on the phone building your skills.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to impart here. And then take us now, let's go back, let's say, to the beginning of this year. At that point, you had started to build a community in Discord. Let's pick up from right there.
Okay. December is when I first started the Discord. So I had closed my first deal, which was with you. You bought the first deal when I was out there in Houston. And I was like, okay. And then I had like 7 or 8 more like lined up with buyers. And I was like, okay, I think I got this. And also, that's also when, so before December, November, I helped my student close my first student, which was free He was a case study. I just wanted to help somebody else close a deal. He came to me, I changed his life around, and he closed his first wholesale deal. And so once I did that, I knew I wanted to start a coaching program and started to and when I wanted to coach people on how to do this, and I wanted to start a Discord. But so after I closed the deal and a student closed the deal, I was like, boom, ready to start. So December 1st, I said $10 for people who join this first month of me starting the Discord. All you gotta do is pay $10. Welcome in. And so a few people paid $10, which now it's not $10. But I came with them, and that has been a journey in and of itself. Like, that is a whole nother journey. Being a coach and being a leader, leading people and changing other people's lives. It's one thing to change your own life, and then it's another thing to change someone else's. And it's a different feeling too. And I love it. Find so much purpose in it. And so, yeah, I've in the Discord, I basically try to fast track my students through the emotional and spiritual journey of becoming an entrepreneur, a beginner entrepreneur, making your first $10,000 in a month, and just getting your first wholesale deal. That's what I guarantee is like if you just show up and do the KPIs every day, you'll get a wholesale deal in 90 days or less, guaranteed.
Yeah, and so by KPIs, what you mean is hitting those numbers that we kind of were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Putting some realistic but challenging numbers out there for yourself and actually doing the work. So then we got into this year, and you started lining up a few more. You were getting some deals under contract. So your students were starting to get some deals under contract. Some of those deals were starting to sell, some of them weren't. Is that right?
Yeah, mine are my students.
Just all of them. Some were selling and some weren't.
Yeah, some
Right.
deals fall apart all the time. Of
Yes.
course.
And we want people to understand that that's the process.
Yeah, that is the process. So a big part of the Discord is I tell people, I have a course in the Discord. I'm like, you need 9 on average as a beginner. You're going to have about 9 contracts. This is the numbers that I found to be consistent. 9 contracts fall through on average in order for you to get one wholesale deal. So when people come in and they start to get their hopes up. I got a deal locked up under contract. All right, cool. Let's go through the process. I shove them through the process, knowing that 9 times out of 10 it's gonna fail. But when it happens, I'm like, all right, cool. You just need 8 more. Just need 8 more to do that. And you got it. So yeah, failure is a part of the process. You need to understand that.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so then you leading up to like the beginning of April, which was a month ago, uh you also had started to get in a tiny financial pinch again. You had sold some properties, but you were running out of money again. Is that right?
August. What do you
Well,
mean?
April, like 30
This
days
year?
ago. Yeah, before you
Oh,
landed this big
oh
contract.
yeah. Yeah, I was out of money. I was broke.
Yeah. So let's pick up right there and tell us like what was you were and you also your living condition, your situation in Houston was getting kind of rough. Your lease was coming up.
Right.
All that was happening. You were running out of money. Your software needed a funding. You were running out of money to pay for your leads. Uh, and so how did you get through that? And then eventually you got this deal that changed. As I mean, this deal is when you look back is going to be for sure the one that changed your life forever.
Yeah.
So lead us down that road.
So, uh, when you're in survival mode, when you come out here on your own, when you're an entrepreneur, you got to lay it all on the line. You got to be willing to sacrifice it all. But number two is like, I was not financially dumb. Like, I was living below my means, but I always kept 10 bands on me. I always kept $10,000 on me. Always, at all times. Ever since I made my first $10,000, I put it away. And I was like, that is the baseline. That is the standard that we don't cross. So I always had $10,000 stashed away. But but I never touched it. So it was like worst case scenario. All right, I'll touch it. Worst case. But yeah, I was doing research on foods that don't go bad. So and not McDonald's. I'm talking about like beans, uh, noodles, rice, things like that. Things that don't go bad. So I was being very conservative with my food, living below my means, and yeah, the living situation sucked. I didn't like it. I was grateful for it. It wasn't horrible, but I didn't like living in a house with like 12 other people. It was weird. A few of them were like actually crazy. Like
So how did you keep your mindset or bring how I'm sure you had bad days. I'm sure you had difficult days. What did you do to not regress and run back home to family? And what did you do to keep the dream stoked, the fire alive?
it's just not an option. I was talking to one of my students about this, is like a lot of people on a journey, they want to hit it big every time. And so there's times I can compare this to everything. When I was cutting grass, days in the Discord, wholesaling, it's like there's times where it seems like nothing's popping off and you gotta like you get little crumbs. And you just got to understand that, okay, this is a season. You're going to get over it. So in the beginning, there's even when it's not in the beginning anymore, it's like there's ups and there's downs. And so the times that I wasn't getting wholesale deals, I knew that, okay, that's not going to last forever. And the times that nobody showed up to the Discord, I'm like, okay, that's not going to last forever. The times where it was a winter season and I was cutting grass, well, I did mostly like blowing and raking leaves, but I was like, okay, that's not gonna last forever. So that's how I got through the times of like there was no wholesale deals or nobody showed up to the Discord or nobody wanted to join the Discord or things like that. So you just have to like ride it out, be consistent. Okay, and another thing to answer the question is, how did I not regress? Like, first of all, it just was going home was never an option ever. And that was just the mindset I had when I first moved out here. I was like, it's do or die. It's do or die. It's either I make it happen or I die. And I didn't plan on dying, so I was going to make it happen. So, and then I set up my environment to where it was very hard to tear down what I was building up. So, on the days it was bad, on the days I didn't feel like doing anything, on the days I was just super unmotivated, maybe I stayed up too late one night. Um, I just took a nap. I just chilled in bed, you know, that's it. I was in an environment to where I couldn't go out and party, I couldn't go out and drink, didn't have the money, things like that. So I was never tearing down what I was building up. I was only ever like taking a break and then moving forward, then taking a break, moving forward, then taking a break, moving forward. Because a lot of people, they'll take 2 steps forward and take 5 steps back because they're in an environment to take 5 steps back, whether that's a relationship, friendship, family, living situation, your friends, whatever. So I was
But Isaiah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I gotta say this. That was a direct result of the personal growth and the work that you did in those couple of years leading up to this, that journey of bettering yourself, facing your demons. You that's so I mean, to me, that's the biggest work here,
right.
period.
That's
And so, you're talking like that was not a big deal that you didn't tear it down, but that's what everybody does.
I had to work to get to that point. I
They,
definitely
yes, that self-development has to be a part of your beginning entrepreneurship journey. Has to be.
that's right.
Um, so, so you were in a place where you had set yourself up for success. Is really that's it. It was almost like you built this environment where it was going to be nearly impossible to fall backwards.
That's exactly right. Yep. And then yes, like just like you said, the years of self-development. Because if I went out to Houston 2 years ago, it would have been hit. I would have been down bad. I would have found a way to destroy something. So yeah, I did have to build myself up to that point. Everything happens for a reason. Trust God's timing. And yeah, for sure, 100%.
So you kept going, and along that way, you found a new mentor, right? Tell us how. Now, lead us to the story of this particular deal where you made $200,000. Lead us to that story.
So I was wholesaling on Zillow. So it's a process. I learned how to cut the dialer off, and I learned to go from Zillow. Then Zillow was my main source of marketing, Zillow and Facebook. And then I kept doing that, but that's a hustle. It's like a hustle, and it's tough. It's hard. And so it's draining. And I see people on YouTube like, okay, they're not hustling like I am. They have deals coming to them, all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I want to learn how to do that. But I had to get money first. So after I had my first $22,000 a month and I had already put $10,000 to the side, I think I had like 14 or $15,000. So with that 15K, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm just gonna pay somebody to teach me how to go to the next level. And that's a big piece of advice that anybody should take is like, as soon as you get the chance, take the leap of faith, go to the next level. Because you stay too long in one spot. I'm not wholesaling on Zillow forever, dude. This stuff's hard, right? It's a skill that I learned, and I'll be able to call Zillow forever. And I can call and I will call Zillow forever, but I'm not going to rely on it. Okay. And so I paid this guy, which I found him same way I found you, from cold calling, and on a deal. And so I just picked his brain. I'm picking everybody's brain. I'm just like a sponge to everybody. Like, what's the next level like? How did you get to the next level? What does the next level look like for you? Okay. And then but I found him, I questioned him. I was like, all right, teach me how to do it. And really, I told him I wanted $100,000 from day one. Like from day one that I met him, I was like, can you show me how to have $100,000? I was like, this is my end goal. I just want $100,000 cash in my hand or in my bank account, mine. Can you help me do that? And he was like, I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee that I could help you create systems and processes that get consistent wholesale deals. And I was like, I guess that's good enough. I guess that's just as valuable. So anyways, I worked with him and he taught me how to start paying for marketing the correct way.
What type of marketing were you using when you got this deal? How did that look?
I was pulling city lists and doing text blasting.
And were you targeting big whales of deals?
So that's what I'm talking about, manifesting, dude. That deal fell in my lap. I didn't have to negotiate with that lady at all, with the seller. I didn't negotiate
Tell us
anything.
the story of it. What happened? How did the phone call go? What was you
Uh,
doing? How many calls are you making that day? Like, was she at the beginning of the day, end of the day? What was that like that day that you first talked to her?
So my mentor had a list. It was like 365 cities. And I was just taking my time one day and picked all the cities that I just Googled the cities that were like actually like in Dallas and
Okay.
like around Dallas, like within, that's cool, heart. But so I just cherry picked the ones, and I just skip traced those. Well, I pulled the list and I skip traced them, then I put them in there, whatever. So I started texting, and I got a few deals under contract before that. And I closed a few deals since then, like, or before then. And when I got to her, I was discouraged. The other contracts had fell through. It was pretty tough. And I'm talking to her. Well, I texted her, just going through doing the process, just like anybody else, like just doing the same thing. And called her. I was like, hey, and I just went through the script. She's like, yeah, I want 800. I was like, okay, let me talk to my partners and I'll get back with you.
When you
And
heard that number 800, what was your first thought?
my first thought was like, I don't know if my first thought was like, this might not be a deal because I'm not used to dealing with expensive houses. So I'm like, this is another person like asking an ungodly amount for a stupid house. But I was just like, I didn't care. She wanted to sell her house. So anybody who wanted to sell their house, I was getting it locked up. Sorry, not sorry. I didn't care. I needed money. So whatever you told me, I was gonna see if you were a little negotiable. If not, fine, we'll get it locked up. I don't care. So, but so she told me 800, and I was like, oh, whatever. But then I looked it up on Zillow and it said 1 million. I was like, okay. And then I looked it up on Propelio and it said 1.2 million. I was like, all right, well, hmm. So I called her back and I was like, all right, we can do it. She was like, I'm sorry. That was my bad. I didn't mean to say 800. I really want 850. I was like, okay, I'll get back with you. So I just really just let some time pass because I was gonna accept it either way. Just letting some time pass, making her think that I'm talking to somebody. Anyways, I called my mentor too, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, dude, you know what this is?" I was like, "What?" It's like, "This is University Park. This is like the richest little town ever." And he was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, dude, like houses in there are selling for like 3 million. What's the price you wanted?" I was like, 850. He was like, "Dude, please get it locked up right now. You want my closer to help you?" I'm like, "Sure." Anyways, so I called her back. I was like, "All right, we could do 850. Let's do it." And then they sent me my mentor had me use the TREC contract, Texas real estate contract. That's the one that all the real estate agents use, the basic standard contract. And then we got it signed, super simple. She read over it. She had to go read over it by herself, and she signed like the next day. And yeah, it was really simple. It was really easy. No fighting, no pulling and tugging, nothing. It's pretty simple.
which is rare. But it's kind of cool that the one that's going to be like this big, huge, life changing event for you was so easy. Like, that's kind of weird.
I found I'm finding that the small deals are hard and the big deals are easy, is what I'm finding out.
Wow. So you got the contract signed. Now you got this deal under contract. And what did you do to sell it?
My mentor said that he'll find a buyer. I was like, all right, cool. Shouts out to him because I was just like, I'll give you equity in the deal. Um, Next time I'm definitely gonna find my own buyer, but
But at that point, you were like, I don't care what I sell it for. I just got to make some money.
that's
Were
it.
you even thinking that it was going to be a big check like that?
No, I thought it was gonna be $50,000,
That's
maybe.
still significant.
Yeah, it is. And so I was just happy with whatever I got.
Yeah.
Whatever I got, I just knew I was moving to Dallas.
So how did you feel when he called you back and said, we got it locked up for 1.2 or whatever the number was?
It still didn't really hit. Didn't really
It
hit.
was like, oh, this is too good to be true, kind of almost.
Kind of almost, yeah. And
Let's see if it closes.
I was just like, let's see if it closes then. Let's just go. Keep going. Got a buyer? Great. I was still like, great. That's great news. Awesome.
Yeah. So
And then
what happened with the buyer?
the buyer ended up being sketchy and weird. And because we had to do a double close, he was like, I don't want to do a double close. I was like, well, we're doing a double close.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, da 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 da. He threatened to like get lawyers. And I'm like, dude, whatever. And so they allegedly had 10 other buyers lined up, ready to buy it. And I was like, really? Wow. So we canceled with him, and the other buyer put in the earnest money deposit that day and
Wow.
2 days later.
And closed 2 days later.
Yeah, the new buyer signed, put up earnest money, and closed 2 days later.
And so were you a part of that closing at all? Or did that all that happen remotely or what?
I've never seen any of these houses that I've wholesaled in person ever.
Yeah. So that was all a remote transaction with a title company in Dallas, right?
Everything's virtual.
And so then how did you find out? How did you find out that you were actually getting paid? So like the day that it closed, like what were you biting your fingernails? Like what was that like?
Well, honestly, the day that it was set to close, it got postponed. So really they closed 3 or 4 days later. Um, but yeah, it got postponed because I don't know, something. So we had to wait till the weekend and
But
then
at that point, you knew it was going to be a $200,000 deal.
yeah.
Man, I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night.
Well, no, see, that did happen. That did happen. Everything else in my life went on pause. I wasn't able to do anything. I didn't want to mess up anything in my mental. I'm like superstitious at this point. I'm like, I'm not worried about any other deals, which is wrong, but like I was, yeah, it was just like everything is on pause until this goes through. I'm putting all my eggs in this one basket. And I was everything paused. I didn't make cold calls. Like there were follow-up calls of deals I already had, and they were calling me. But if other than that, I was like, look, everybody, back off. I got something going on here.
I
And
hear that.
couldn't sleep. I was barely working out. Anxious.
Yeah, I mean, you were just like almost in a shock phase for a minute, but you wanted to keep your inner energy right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so now we get to the day of it actually closed. I mean, did they call you? Was there any hiccups, or was it like you woke up that morning, nothing went wrong, and you kept checking your bank account?
Yep.
You was waiting for the wire all day.
Yeah.
Did it come the same day or the next day?
Like this that day. That
It
day.
can't. So it was like 1 minute there was like $3 in your account, and the next minute
That's right.
six figures.
Right. That's exactly right.
Oh man, that had to be the best feeling you ever had in your life, or close
Yeah.
to.
I was like, I seen it. I had to like double back and I was like, is this real? And so I was like,
Did
dude,
you cry? Did you pray? Did you crack a beer? What'd you do?
I immediately called the apartments and like, I didn't spend any money anywhere. I didn't waste any time. I didn't want to do anything else in Houston. I wanted to spend as little time in Houston as possible. I wanted to get out. So the day I closed it, boom. And then the next day I moved out.
So you went straight into, okay, next phase, start now.
Yeah.
You
Like
didn't even like take the time to drop on your knees and say a prayer, call your mama.
now that
Nothing.
now that you're saying that, I feel bad. Maybe I didn't pray. But I did call my mom. I did call my mom and my brother because my mom, I was using her email for DocuSign. And so she's being nosy and she looked at some of the documents and she was like, you closing $1 million deal?
$1 million deal. Yeah.
Well, actually, it was my brother who called me
Yeah.
because I told my brother, and my brother's like, you closed $1 million deal? And that was before I even closed it. So I was like, how do you know this? I
Right.
didn't tell anybody. And they were like, yeah, I saw it. So I was like, yeah, I am.
Wow. So, all right. So now you made some serious cheese. You got six figures in your bank account. You pack up your bags that night, right?
Yeah, that night.
And
I
you're
think,
like, I'm out of here.
yeah, I think it was actually 2 days later. So I closed the deal, waited a day. I didn't wait a day. I had to wait on the apartment to approve my thing. And then I
Yeah.
moved the next day. So 2 days later, like less than 48 hours later, I'm like, the room is clean, everything's packed. I have a U-Haul and I'm
You're
driving.
gone. You're gone. And you moved to Dallas where you are now. So with the last few minutes, let's talk about how you believe you actually got this deal. And
Right.
you talk about the components of that because that's where the magic happens.
Right. So yeah, the manifesting, I say that it's visualization, affirmations, and putting in the work. And so visualizations, I had a picture, I Googled a picture of a Capital One 360 checking account with $100,000 in it. That was on my vision board. And then I had a vision board of $50,000 cash. It was really $100,000 cash, but it was in two piles of $50,000. And yeah, so I looked at that every day with emotion and it was up in front of me every single day. I looked at it. And then I also had pictures that I looked at before I went to bed. So emotion. When I looked at them and they're mine, I closed my eyes. I imagine what it's like holding it. And then affirmations, 1 to 3 times a day, minimum one time a day. It's the best time to write and say affirmations is when you're half asleep. There's science behind this. It's called being in a theta state. And so the best time to do something when you're half asleep is right when you wake up, not really before you go to sleep, right? Because before you go to sleep, it takes a while for you to get sleepy. And then to do something when you're half asleep before you're going to sleep is like, so it's best to do it right when you wake up. Before you grab your phone, don't grab your phone, don't do anything. You roll over, open your eyes barely, and you're like writing, I am so happy and grateful now.
And since you shared that with me, I've been doing it.
Yeah. So being in a theta state, being half asleep is very, very important. There is science behind affirmations in this, and like the CIA knows about this. Like stuff is real, dude.
So you're visualizing with the pictures and you're visualizing yourself holding the money, having the money in your checking account. You're writing down the affirmations. What does the affirmations look like on the paper when you're writing them? What are you saying? Give us an example.
I would say I am so happy and grateful now that I have $100,000 cash in my hands right now. This is so amazing. I love this so much. And I love that my business is now fully automated and doing 6 figures a month. My mom is so proud of me. It's so fun when me and my family, we get to take trips to Dubai and fly first class. I love buying them trips and everything. It's so amazing. Yesterday we went out to Dubai and we went to this trip to the zoo and we got to hold the animals. It was so cool. We got to pet a lion. That was so amazing. And I'm just so happy and grateful for all that I have right now. I'm so happy and grateful to be a multimillionaire. That's what it would look like.
Yeah, and you shared with me to take the gratitude practice, really, the gratitude practice of saying, I'm thankful for. So if I look around my room and I say, I'm so thankful for, this space that I get to have as my office with the windows and y'all can't see, but there's a lake right out there. I have a beautiful view. I'm up off the ground. So I'm so thankful for this. And Isaiah, you share with me, I want to share with everybody else. Take the gratitude into the future. And
Right.
since you told me that, the very next day I've been doing it. And so now, I'm talking about just like you being in Dubai or wherever it is for me, like for me, it's like, I want another house in the mountains. I always wanted a house on the lake. I have that now. I want one in the mountains. So now it's like, I'm so thankful I get to sit on my deck. I can feel the cool mountain air this morning. So thank you for sharing that because I think I love doing it. It's fun. And so then tell us about the third part, which is super crucial, action, action.
Putting in the work consistently every day, even if it's a little bit of work, even if you're just going through the motions, just put in the freaking work and you're gonna get a lucky day. You're gonna get a it's hard to miss a lucky day if you show up every day. Just show up every day, dude. If you do the manifestation, your subconscious is gonna bring it into reality. It's weird how it happens and it's unexplainable, but it happens. So manifestation is real, but it's not gonna come if you're just sitting around all day and like looking at crystals and lighting candles. Like you have to do the work. And so just show up every day for yourself. The universe sees you. God sees you when you show up and nobody's looking at you. That's where you really get rewarded. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's saying good job. You're just doing the work every single day. It's hard to explain, but it's a whole nother spiritual, emotional journey of putting in the work.
Yeah, you're putting in the work alongside visualization, alongside your affirmations, your intentions, your gratitude. And
Don't
this,
expect to hit a home run every time. Like, don't
yeah.
expect to hit a home run. Like, just show up, dude. Strike out some
Well,
days.
your inner energy changes too. You become more full of peace, full of joy.
Yeah.
Your inner light changes. You start to walk in what, Christians call the fruit of the spirit.
Right.
Those things start to become manifested in your inner self. And so I mean, good things happen to people who are doing good things and on and on and on. So uh in the last minute, and we'll wrap up with this. How can people get in touch with you? Invite people to whatever thing you got going on now, your YouTube page, Discord. How can people become a part of your life?
Subscribe to my YouTube and DM me on Instagram. My YouTube is Isaiah Malonson 504. And my YouTube is Isaiah Malonson. My Instagram is Isaiah Malonson 504. ISAIAH MALONSON 504. Instagram and YouTube. That's it.
Got it. Well, we appreciate you coming on, sharing with us. I love being. I'm thankful to be a part of your life because our relationship uh has impacted me as well as other people who are connected through our network, and it's been great, man. And we're just starting
Same here.
this
You've
big journey.
actually changed my life. You were a big part of my life and a big part of the level up, and you've guided me to do a lot of things in life and in business. I remember asking you a lot of times for life advice, and you just knew how to, like, you just said the right things. I was like, he gets it. So
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you big time. And I know there's a lot more to come. So with that, we're gonna end it and we will just keep on pushing forward. We will keep showing up with our best selves. How about that?
right,
All
absolutely.
right. Bye bye.
Peace.